Hello guys and welcome back to Planet 40k Tyranids. We've got another unit review for you today. This time we're going to be looking at another one of the new models, which is the Neurotyrant. So that came from the Leviathan box set, which is this box set right here. So let's get straight into this datasheet, I guess. So we're going to of course be giving our Planet 40k rating and all that jazz as well. But let's in fact look at the points. It's 105 points, so it's fairly cheap to be fair. It's fairly cheap. 105 points for a monster with synapse on top of that. It's got the fly keyword. That's not the biggest of deals really. It has been nerfed in 10th edition. But yeah, 105 points is pretty reasonable. Now the model is equipped with Psychic Scream and the Neurotyrant Claws and Lashes. Now it does have the leader ability, so it can be attached to the following units. So you've got your Neurogaunts, which is another new unit from that box set, as well as the Tyrant Guard. So we're going to talk about that in the synergy part of this video. But let's flip this card over and check out the statistics to begin. So very slow here, movement of only 6 inches. On top of fly means you're not going to be really making the max use of fly, because you now need to measure diagonally when you're getting up to on top of ruins and buildings and all that stuff. So it's movement 6 is very slow. Yeah, not the greatest. Toughness 8, it's okay. Our monsters have been sort of toughness 10, toughness 11. Toughness 8 isn't massive this edition, but we've still got something there. A 4+ armor save. There is also a 4+ invulnerable save, so there's virtually always a 4+ save. Not a feel no pain save though. There are ways to put that on. Again, we'll talk about that later. Wounds 9, leadership 7+, and objective control is only 3, so quite low there. So it feels like, even though it's got the tyrant part of its name, it feels like a lesser version of a tyrant. Doesn't have any of the stats really to compare to a Hive Tyrant or a Swarm Lord, in fact, because they're moving faster, they got better toughness, they got a better save, they got more wounds, and yeah, just much better in general. But let's get down into the actual weaponry for the Neurotyrant. Starting with the range attacks, we've got the Psychic Scream. So this will ignore cover, as well as being the psychic ability, and it's a torrent, so it automatically hits. Now bearing in mind, we're moving only 6 inches. This thing has only an 18-inch range, so we need to get fairly close to use it. And when we're only moving 6 inches, you're not really going to be doing that much with that. It's got 2d6 attacks, so that's an average of 7 attacks that are automatically hitting, because of course it's a torrent. Strength 5 -1 AP, but 2 damage. So 2 damage is pretty decent. It can remove marine models. The way I see this weapon, I think it's more of an Overwatch weapon, because you automatically hit, you don't need to roll to get the 6s, and it's when an opponent's units is going to be coming after your Neurotyrant rather than you going after them, if that makes sense. The range and the movement kind of lets it down slightly. I mean, we can't expect a huge range from this kind of torrent weapon, but because our movement is so slow, you're not going to use it that often, to be honest. So that instantly makes me think the battlefield roll may be slightly different. We'll go over that as well in a bit. So strength 5 -1 AP, 2 damage. It's not bad overall. Now the melee weapons, Neurotyrant Claws and Lashes, 6 attacks, weapon skill 3+, strength 5, 0 AP and 1 damage. So light infantry at best. You're not going to be killing marines with that, because well, it's only 1 damage and there's no AP. So light infantry, guardians, I always use them as an easy way to do the maths. Those kind of units, you should easily squish them. So as for the right side of the data card with the abilities, we've got of course the leader ability, which we've mentioned for the Neurogaunts and the Hive Tyrant. Not the Hive Tyrant, the Tyrant Guard. That can lead those 2 units. It's got Synapse, and it actually does have Synapse in the keyword, so therefore everything within 6 inches will be within Synapse range. So therefore a couple of the stratagems, you're going to get a bit of a boost when you use them. And also when we're doing our battle shock test, we can use 3 dice rather than 2. It's not the biggest deal, to be honest with you. Yes, sometimes it's important for stratagems. Yes, it's sometimes important to remain in control of an objective. But other than that, it's not the biggest army rule. We've then got Shadow in the Warp, which is basically the same thing but flip reverse. We're throwing battle shock onto our opponents. Again, it's not the biggest deal. Every now and then, in a very situational situation, if that's even a sentence, you can get them to fail a battle shock test, and then all of a sudden that unit can't be using stratagems in a certain fight phase perhaps. Maybe it could be Necron Lich Guard, or it could be Deathwing Terminators coming in. and all of a sudden they don't have the stratagems to use against your unit. Can be useful in that situation, but very situational. You've then got the Node Lash, which is one of 3 unique abilities. It is a psychic power, so while this model is leading a unit, you're going to get a +1 to the hit roll, so that's going to be your Neurogaunts or your Tyrant Guard, and if they're battle shocked, which they potentially could be with Shadow in the Warp, it's a +1 to the wound roll as well. Again, situational with the wound roll there, but a +1 to the hit roll for the Tyrant Guard in particular could be decent. The Neurogaunt, yeah, not so much. I'm not as bothered about that. Psychic Terror, which is another psychic ability. The second ability it has, if there are 1 or more Neurotyrants from your army that are within the battlefield, when you unleash Shadow in the Warp, it's a -1 to their battle shock test. So I wish I saw that earlier because then I could have spoke about it in Shadow in the Warp. But yeah, -1 in that situational situation. It's going to assist, definitely. But is it a massive ability? It's situational, isn't it? It really is. It really is. You can't really rely on it to do whatever it's going to be doing in every single game, is what I'm trying to say. The third one is Synaptic Relays. This one is a good one. So in your command phase, you can select up to 2 friendly Tyranid units within 12 inches of this model. And then until the start of the next command phase, they're always considered to be within synapse range of your army. So you've got those 2 little Synaptic Relay tokens that will remind you of the units that you've used this ability on. So this is done in the command phase, which is quite key because you can then do this ability. And it's within 12 by the way, not within 6. They can then do their movement, they can move, whether they can advance, charge, they can go off and do their own things. Then you potentially got use of some of the stratagems that will be boosted by being in synapse range. Such as, which is the stratagem it's called now, bear with me. It's Rapid Regeneration, for example, where if you're within synapse range, you get a Feel No Pain save of a 5+ rather than a 6+. Things like that will assist those kind of units. So it is a buffing character effectively at the end of the day. So what is the battlefield role for the Neurotyrant? Well, it's all about battle shock and synapse really. So the first thing is you're forcing battle shock and you're going to give them a -1 to their tests. Again, situational, I keep saying that word. You've also got the use of synapse boosting. It's a synapse creature in itself. And if you're leading a unit, then that unit's going to be within synapse. You've got your Neurogaunts, which could also increase the synapse range. And then, of course, that ability, Synaptic Relays, to have 2 units that are within synapse from the command phase, within 12 inches. So there's a lot of boosting going off there. But what I think this unit is going to really be doing is getting into the no man's land. Not necessarily too deep in. You don't want to be fighting with this thing. I don't think it's that tough. I don't think it's going to be doing that much damage. So a bit of a slow building unit that's going to walk into the objectives in the no man's land. And the reason for that is mainly the weapons. 18-inch range and you're moving 6 inches. You could potentially leave it in your own deployment zone and wait for a unit to come deep striking in and try to make a charge move on your units within your deployment zone. That could also be something you could do. But really this thing's there to assist with infantry removal. I've put infantry removal, but really it's just an assist to others doing that job. We've got a lot of anti-infantry weapons in our codex, in our index. This isn't really taking out entire units, it's just going to assist taking out 2s and 3s. So yeah, that's mainly what it's doing. I would get it to the centre of the battlefield, start spreading your synapse all over the place, removing battle shock, or giving your opponent battle shock, and assisting with the flamers on top. Well, I call them the flamers, I shouldn't really call them the flamers. Flamers, Psychic Scream is what I meant, the torrents. I'm so used to torrents being flamers. But yeah, that's what I would do with my Neurotyrant. As for some synergy for the Neurotyrant, you've got to start with those Neurogaunts. Now, I want to make this very clear just before we get into this. In fact, the Neurogaunts are toughness 3. If they are being led by a Neurotyrant, then while these things are alive, the Neurotyrant is also toughness 3. That's a huge problem, because if you get your opponent using the epic challenge stratagem or precision, your Neurotyrant is toughness 3. It's not toughness 8 anymore. So for me, that is a big no-no to be leading those kind of models. I would still use them, but I would use them as a screen, and then you can, of course, increase the synapse range if you've got these models in. If they're within synapse range, say 6 inches, or even 12 inches potentially, then you've got the extra 6 inches from these models, because they're going to have synapse. That's the only real use for them, but I would definitely not be leading them as a unit. The other unit you've got as an option to lead is the Tyrant Guard. Now these guys are toughness 8, which matches the Neurotyrant, so that's okay. They're going to get a +1 to their hit roll because of the ability that the Neurotyrant has, which was no lash. Potentially a +1 to the wound roll as well. But they're pretty decent because they're going to provide a 5+ feel no pain save to the Neurotyrant that is leading the unit. Of course, these guys can also go with the Swarm Lord, they can also go with the Hive Tyrant. Potentially they don't need it. I mean, in previous videos I said they did. They potentially don't because of this similar thing that I've just mentioned, in fact, with the toughness. As soon as you put them into an attached unit, you lower the toughness of the Tyrants because they, I believe they are tough. Are they toughness 11? Just going to quickly check. They're toughness 10. So you will be lowering them down to toughness 8. So at least this thing is toughness 8 and it kind of matches. So it would work with the Tyrant Guard in my opinion. Now, if you wanted to get a Feel No Pain by other means, you've got the Stratagem Rapid Regeneration, so you get your 5+ Feel No Pain save from there because you're always within Synapse. It has Synapse anyway. For 1 command point, you could do that. Or you've got the option of the there's 4 enhancements. I would look at 2 of them in particular. Synaptic Linchpin, if you wanted to go with the Synapse route. So you're increasing Synapse by 9 inches, and then of course 2 models within 12 can go off and still be within Synapse. So it's a much larger bubble, especially with those Neurogaunts that are going to assist with all that. Again, I don't really think it's that big of a deal, but some of you guys are playing to the advantages of having Synapse. I personally don't. I think you could just invest the points in damage dealing units, but some people prefer to do the Synapse way. The other one is the Adaptive Biology. So if you wanted to have a 4+ Feel No Pain save, well, a 5+ Feel No Pain save which can turn to a 4+ if you lose any wounds, you can use Adaptive Biology that way. But again, I would probably save that for something better. Your Hive Tyrant as an example there. So let's get on to the pros and cons for the Neurotyrant. Start with the pros. It's only cheap. It's 105 points, dirt cheap if you wanted to get some Synapse in your army. It's got the Synapse plus the boost of Synapse. We've kind of mentioned it quite a few times in this video, so I don't need to go over old ground with that. It's got an invulnerable save of a 4+, which is quite nice. Helps with the resiliency. It's a -1 to battle shock for your opponents, which is also helpful. +1 to hit for your Tyrant Guard if you're taking Tyrant Guard. Potentially +1 to wound roll as well. Situational, but you've got it. As for the cons, it's slow with a 6-inch movement. You're not going that fast around the battlefield. Fly, it's also got, but that's been massively nerfed this edition. The damage dealing isn't its strong point. Yes, it's got the 2 damage flamers, but you've got only 18-inch range and an average of 7 shots. Don't get me wrong, you can get 12 shots with it. Happy days. You could also get 2 shots with it. So yeah, unhappy days. Synapse, to me, is the main key reason for taking this model, but I just think it's not that important. I'd rather, again, just take damage dealing units than having Synapse units. I don't think you need it. Battle Shock in itself is very situational with the stratagems and object control. Yes, it will potentially get you a lot of victory points in some games and even win you some games, but in others it will do absolutely nothing. Its toughness can go down to toughness 3 if you're with the Neurogaunts, if you're leading that unit. And finally, it just doesn't really do much. So far from my experience with the Neurotyrant, it's just not doing anything. It's just not worth the points in my opinion. So let's get on to the Planet 40k rating to date for the Neurotyrant. Again, I just don't think it does enough for me. I know it's cheap, I know the Synapse thing is a big key thing for some people, but for me it just doesn't do anything. I'd rather spend, I don't know, 75 points on some Raveners or get some more Zoanthropes in. There's lots of things you could do, and for me, I just wouldn't select it, but for the ones that would select it, I understand. So for that reason, I'm going to go with a Planet 40k rating of 2.5 out of 5. So guys, you'll have to let me know, do you disagree with my rating? Let me know why in the comments down below, and also remember to give your rating. Give your rating out of 5 so that we can have a little bit of a discussion. Guys, thank you all for watching. See you in the next one.